What's up, sons? It's Blind Rod with Son of a Tech once again, and joining me today is Jared from Digital Spaceport YouTube channel, and you can follow him on Twitter at Go Spaceport. Welcome to the channel, my friend.
Hey, how you doing, man? It's good to get back in contact with you. Had fun at your meetup that you had after Consensus. Good to meet people in person whenever it's, a crypto kind of vibe and have a couple beers, talk about crypto.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. I was surprised we had your friend Andy come out too, and I didn't even know who it was. And I'm looking it up later. I'm like, oh dang, that guy's got some good stuff going on lately on YouTube and Twitter and everything. So kind of good to like meet people face to face too. And like I think once you're able to do that, it's definitely easier to start networking and all of that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Consensus was kind of a harder vibe this year than last year, so it was good. Actually, your event was kind of more fun than some of the other events that I went to. It had just kind of a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more laid back, and it didn't vibe like the bear market kind of vibes that you were getting elsewhere. So it was really a fun time.
Did you go to Consensus last year as well in 2022?
Yeah, I just did like the locals thing. Kind of, I like sign up for all the free stuff, go drink all the free booze. This year was much less free booze, so much less free stuff. It was a different vibe.
That's interesting because I think near the end of last year, I went to the mining conference in Round Rock at the Kalahari. And it was that was like bear market blues, like hardcore. Like nobody was showing up for the speeches. Like the conference hall was like opening late every day. Literally everybody's hungover, and it was just like it was pretty brutal to go sit down and watch, because you're just like, oh, you could feel it, right? Everybody's just kind of depressed, like, oh man. I think even at that time, I had a run-in with one of the bigger mining companies that's now going bankrupt or whatever. And I had kind of talked to him, and then later he DM'd me and was like, can you help me get a job? And I was like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah,
so it was those kind of vibes.
Your event was a lot of fun out there. It was a good day. Good afternoon.
Yeah, we should do the event again for sure. I want to do a meetup in Houston and one in Dallas at some point. Try to work it around some sort of crypto events that are already going on there. Seeing that it seems like we can pull at least a few people, which is fun, right? And kind of just sit down and chat and go from there. So you're a YouTuber as well. Tell everybody what you do, where your YouTube channel is, and what you cover primarily.
So yeah, I mean, I mainly cover home labs. I've been into Linux for quite some time. I kind of have been a crypto miner for a long time also. But, I mainly cover Chia, which not necessarily the most popular cryptocurrency among the GPU crowd, but it's something that a lot of people that are into GPU mining have been looking at a second time here recently. And so, yeah, I've been doing that since right after mainnet launch. And I enjoy it. It's easy to do is kind of the other really nice part. And having been a GPU miner up until then, and, I still have a small GPU farm, but not like 70 cards or anything like that. It's really much less overhead for me to manage and maintain. It just runs in the background. It's all on enterprise gear, and it just works. And that's easy,
Yeah, is it all kind of like hand-me-down enterprise gear that you snag off of like things like ServerMonkey and stuff, or is it decom gear from work?
No, so almost everything I've got right now is stuff that either I drove to pick it up on like a crazy road trip to get all the quad socket servers. Some of the other things I got off eBay, and then most all of the disk shelves and stuff like that I got off of a Gov Deals thing. We bought out like a huge shipment. I mean, I got way in over my head on buying out a shipment of hardware, enterprise hardware from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. And I had no concept of freight and how difficult it was going to be to get freight shipped. But 11 pallets later, I think I've learned a lot, and I'm probably not going to do that one again. But yeah, it's just setting over here. Let me point the camera at it real quick, see if everybody can check it out.
Here, we'll get a boom. Nice. So that's the Chia. You got 3 racks there. And then are those all Synologies on the right? No, those aren't. Never mind. What are those on the right?
these guys here are DE 6600s, so they're 60 bay JBODs, and these things are pretty sweet. Yeah, they're really easy to utilize. Open them, pop them. You don't have caddies for them, so very easy to use, and SaaS based, so not really difficult to like manage from an interface standpoint. Not like some of the other things that you might run into, like InfiniBand, Fiber Channel, and stuff like that.
Nice. I'd show you my mining farm behind me, but this is fake. It's all a lie.
Green screen lies, man. Green screen lies.
Yeah. But luckily, those are my rigs. They are not as profitable as the Chia mining, from what I can tell right now, though. So there is that. How is your profitability? What does power consumption look like? Does that eat into a lot of your costs for running Chia?
So that's actually the reason that, I mean, there's a lot happening regulatorily. And I mean, we just saw today what came down from the White House, mining tax on 30%, that they're proposing on cryptocurrency generators. That's going to be pretty devastating to a lot of things. So really, I try to have a portfolio that is like a little bit higher risk and a little bit lower risk. Chia is definitely lower risk because it doesn't use very much electricity. So like if you're looking at how much electricity I'm using right now, I'm using somewhere in the neighborhood of about $12-ish or something like that. So, I mean, that's per day. So that's not terribly much.
On how much a kilowatt hour?
Yeah. So my kilowatt rate is 0.9825. So it's a really good kilowatt hour. And I mean, when we bought the house, we kind of had that in mind because I was GPU mining at the time. And like I've got about 3.1 PB, which is 3,100 TB of space. I've got the 3 rigs. And so it's really not terribly high on the kilowatt hours. I mean, I'm like 12.38 or something like that for the kilowatts to farm daily. That's not much as far as like the actual electricity costs. So it's actually very low. And I'm making around $34, $35 a day, depending upon whether I hit a block or not. And every 2 days or so, I hit a block. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, it's consistent right now. It's been very consistent. And that's it. The start was rough. I've got to say the start was rough, but it's been pretty consistent for the past about 6 months, the earnings on it that you're looking at as a farmer.
I got to catch up on Chia because it's been a while. Obviously, I interviewed Bram Cohen like a year ago now at this point. I also did some of the early guides on plotting back when it was like CPU. I think there was some very early GPU plotting that you could do. I believe I was actually utilizing Threadripper at the time. And then plotting to basically a NAS server that I had set up. Actually, no, it was plotting to, I don't even remember. I think it was just a RAID 0. I was probably messing it all up. It's been a while. So I'm not all
back
up
then.
To
it
date
was
on
rough.
That. Yeah, it was. There was a lot going on that you had to change, and it's all a lot's changed now, right? So
everything's now GPU plotting, GPU farming. So the GPU does the decompression and the compression of the plot. So there was a novel helmet attack, if you want to look at it that way, that happened, and that allowed you to actually use a GPU to solve on the fly the first several tables, so that you get actually the same amount of proofs stored as hashes inside a plot, but you're able to have a significantly reduced size footprint. So right now, with a C8 compression level on the Mad Max Gigahorse platform, you're looking at about 42% more space. So your 1 petabyte or something like that of space would be 1.42 petabytes of space.
Okay, got you.
Effective net space.
And then it doesn't sound like you're pooling because you said when you find a block. Where has pooling come along now at this point?
So pooling's come a long way, and like I'm on Space Farmers, and you can just search for Digital Spaceport on Space Farmers and follow along with me. I do pool.
Okay.
And this is like one of the cool things about Chia is the consensus formation. Even if you're pooling, you form the block locally at your, I form the block here at my house. And so that allows, me to also participate completely in the consensus. That's why you also have to have a completely synchronized blockchain. And that's why there's so many full nodes of Chia that are running out there, is because to farm, you do need to have a fully synchronized blockchain. So when you're looking at like where consensus formation happens, it does happen locally. And I get 0.25 XCH for each one of those, and the pool takes 1.75.
Okay, got you. So you get an additional reward essentially if your actual farm itself finds the block.
Yeah, so if I was solo, and I've done solo before, and I've got to be honest with you, solo is boring and lonely. So it's fun to kind of sail the ship with other people. But when you're solo, you get the full 2 yourself. It does split if you've plotted with the plot NFT 1.75 and 0.25, but it all comes together in your wallet at the same time. So yeah, but you do get 2 XCH right now. 2024 that changes, and we've got the halving, and you'll be at 1 XCH.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. All caught up with Chia as far as that's concerned. Why not something like Filecoin or Storage?
Oh, I'm not opposed to. Well, so Storage A, I don't know about that one too much, but Filecoin, I'm not like opposed to any of them. As a matter of fact, there's a couple cool ones that I would recommend if your audience is interested in checking out. There's a couple that'll be early, like Space Mesh. They're yet to really get out there. And also MMX, which is Mad Max, actually the guy that came up with the new technology. And he's actually a GPU programmer. So he was the guy that wrote the Mad Max plotter that kind of changed things drastically from the OG plotting that you were probably familiar with initially. And so that really revolutionized how people were plotting. You didn't have to waste tons of NVMe and stuff like that because most of it started happening in RAM. And so he said in his GitHub repo back then, he was like, I'm going to start working on GPU and it'll happen. And sure enough, it has happened. And so he's now got it to where you can use 256 gigs of RAM, plot fully in RAM, have a C8, and it's done with one plot in about 2 minutes. So really
nice.
Way faster. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was like 30 minutes before. It was painfully slow.
Yeah. That's pretty quick. So how long is that to plot like a petabyte?
So, I mean, it depends how many rigs you throw at it and what kind of networking you have. Like I've got 40 gigabit networking that I use to move my plots. And so I can move a lot of plots really fast. And I also use TrueNAS and RAID 0 arrays of 12. So I have 12 per stripe. And so that puts my spindle speed quite high, like 2.2 gigabytes per second. So I can write really, really fast to each one of my arrays. And since I've got so many arrays, I can kind of span that out and write to each one. So I can get done with a petabyte easily in about a week and a couple days.
Okay, nice. We should slow down for some people. We're going to get into IT speak too much for everyone. I think there was one term you used that we should probably clarify. I forgot what it was now.
Stripe. Like RAID 0 array.
I think people understand RAID. Well, maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah, so a RAID 0 array just means striped, which means essentially you don't have any redundancy. Redundancy is when you have a copy of the data on another drive. But I forgot what it is now. But like when you were blasting through it, I was like, oh, I know what that is, but we should clarify. And now I can't remember. The software you're using to manage it, you said was TrueNAS?
TrueNAS.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
TrueNAS is free and open source software. Really good stuff. Are you going to edit this?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So
edit.
TrueNAS, yeah, that's perfect. So TrueNAS is really good stuff, and I mean it's open source. It's free. It uses ZSF. There's a couple things that you might want to set, and I've got some like specific tutorials
ZSF,
that are like
explain that real quick.
The best file system. Let me just start a fight with IT everybody out there. The best file system that's ever happened. No, I am joking. But it is for TrueNAS. It gives people a really good user interface, which is handy for people that are new to anything. And it's open source and free. And you don't get all that really with a lot of other software out there. So TrueNAS scores big points for doing that. I use TrueNAS Scale, and that allows people to, graphically see and create their storage pools and create NSF shares and also Samba shares if they're on Windows.
Nice. Okay. And then what format are you putting them in for the share and moving them over? I mean, obviously you said you had the 40 gigabit networks, but actually I'm trying to recall. So the plots, I mean, you're just moving the plots over to those RAID 0 arrays or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's just
and
flat
so the
on
data
that?
share.
Okay.
Yeah, so the data share is just straight up a ZFS RAID 0 array of 12 disks,
Okay.
about 150 terabytes each one. And I mean, that's basically just where I store all of them. I mount each one of them as an NFS because I use Linux for almost all of the stuff I do. And that just write directly to them. I don't need to write to a temp buffer. I don't need to write to an SSD, just write directly to them.
Nice. Sick. Sweet.
Yeah.
All caught up. I think we're good to go. If anybody has any more questions, that they can check out your channel, right? Digital Spaceport, and you go over everything in more detail.
Yeah, I cover a lot of Chia stuff on there, so it is definitely a Chia heavy channel. I do some home lab stuff also, so I try to bridge the gap because there is a lot of technical that happens in Chia. It's gotten easier, it's gotten faster, but it's still a lot of technical. So I try to bridge that gap with some just general generic home lab content like 40 gigabit networking, TrueNAS, stuff like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I've even found like supplementing that on my locals and stuff and doing written guides for like Linux has helped a lot, where I don't have to, I can be like, hey, there's a whole like Linux command line starter guide over here. Go through that first before we start talking about building nodes or whatever it is. Or, you know, here's what a virtual machine is. Go check that out and figure that out. And that's definitely, I mean, encouraging though that I think cryptocurrency has brought a lot of people into the IT space. A lot of people understand it a lot more than they used to. You know, without you know, formal schooling and stuff, which is also, you know, a big point, which I think is great. I think it's been amazing.
Yeah, I was about 3 months into the channel, and somebody commented that they got a job in IT and they didn't actually have any Linux experience before I got them, just kind of threw them into Linux. And then they started learning and deep diving on it, and they became like a junior system administrator. I thought that was really encouraging and great to hear. So
Yeah.
that was an early kudos that I was like, wow, I didn't actually think I would have that kind of impact on anybody, but yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. So you brought up the mining tax earlier. 30% is what's proposed by the Biden administration on specifically cryptocurrency mining, which maybe I can get your thoughts on that. First of all, it's discriminatory. It seems like you're discriminating against a business type, which is kind of interesting. And then this would be, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be the largest tax implementation a president's ever made, right? Normally, presidents don't ever implement a tax because that's like a for sure don't get reelected move, right?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, this election coming up. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, the economy, the macro, everything that's happening right now, I think it's going to weigh pretty heavy on people's minds when they're in that booth. But when you look at a 30% tax on a specific industry, I mean, and I personally feel like it's going to be everybody in cryptocurrency production. I don't think that it's going to be just mining. I think that it possibly is staking, farming, everybody, no matter what you call it. If you are a producer of cryptocurrencies, they're probably going to tag you and be like, we want that 30%. And so, I mean, if you look at like how you could necessarily, you know, have an operation in the United States, you got to start looking outside the United States, really. Either that or have an off-grid system, and that's just not viable still. So it really becomes very difficult in the United States. So I think we're in for some interesting times. I don't know what to say other than I'm incredibly disappointed with the cryptocurrency lobby in the United States. I feel like they have. I have no idea what they do. I have no idea what they do, but it doesn't seem like they ever score a win. I can't name the last win that they scored. Can you?
I mean, within local government, yeah, we had Montana pass their bill that actually is supposed to block a federal tax, which is going to make things interesting too. I've been saying this for some time. I think that cryptocurrency mining is going to become a states' rights issue, not dissimilar from marijuana and so on. So I think it's going to be very interesting because the more you try to stifle that industry, if that industry has ingrained itself already within an individual state that's benefiting from it, right, from an energy grid perspective and all of that, I think you're going to have a hard time enforcing it as a federal government, right? It gets really weird.
I mean, so here's how I envision it. The IRS has got a new checkbox. Are you a cryptocurrency miner? Do you produce cryptocurrencies? What was your electric consumption that you utilized for that? And here's how you calculate your 30%. So I mean, it doesn't have to be a complex way that they would come after people, but it does seem like the actual tax being levied and originating in the White House is not the venue for that directly. Yeah, I don't think that's the venue for that. Isn't that like the Congress?
It's not usually. Yes, but I did look that up, and technically presidents are allowed to. They just never do because they never get reelected if they do. In fact, the party doesn't get reelected typically if they do. Right. So
interesting.
I was curious to the legality of that. I did read up on it, and I was like, oh, okay, so they can do it, but typically a president wouldn't do it because he won't make it a re-election. The question is how strong is the bad for the environment narrative when speaking to his constituents, right? So that's where it really rubber hits the road. If that narrative has been sold and it's taken wholesale by his supporters, then maybe it doesn't matter, right?
Do you find the timing on everything just a little bit sus?
I have
the Ethereum merge, when all of the talk about regulations started coming out, it just seems like it was really well timed. Like the delivery of bad news for crypto has been very 1, 2, 3 punch kind of. So, I mean, I don't know. It seems like it's very well thought out, very, very carefully orchestrated. And that has me feeling like we are in for a bigger problem, possibly as producers of cryptocurrency in the United States than we might expect.
I mean, until they go, oh crap, now Russia, because of sanctions, is just going full force into Bitcoin now. I don't know. There's too many variables to say that it was, I think, orchestrated. I think there's definitely some orchestration in some things, right? Like,
I would just say from the administration side, they've done a really good job of laying out, because they had right around the merge a bunch of different papers that came out, like 4 different papers that they produced that have led up to now the tax that they're proposing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they've been framing this and setting this framework for what's coming down the pipeline for 6 months. And it does seem like they have definitely orchestrated on their end. Not saying they've orchestrated with other people out there, but they've definitely on their end done a good job of timelining this and delivering pretty devastating possibilities for the crypto industry at typically usually the worst times when things are going bad or there's an FTX or something like that that's happening.
But we're also coming up close to
it's something that I'm scared about, right? For sure.
I mean,
it's not far away.
I don't think that this plays well, is what I'm saying. I just don't think it plays well. They
don't really talk about what they're going to do for the people that are impacted. I did read the White House's statement on this, and while they talk about, the tax, they don't talk about what is the tax going to be used for? Are they going to do noise remediation? Is there going to be like carbon offsets they're going to buy? Like what are they going to do? They don't even talk about the specifics of what they're going to do. They just talk about this is a problem and this is how we go after it. They don't talk about here's what we want to see happen to be solutions towards it. And I know a lot of cryptocurrency operations are kind of remote, right? I mean, most people aren't like, let's put this right in somebody else's backyard.
Large operations are being deployed very close to substations, right? And in Texas, for example, that's going to be, I mean, if you're talking about when they're utilizing renewable or flare gas, which is renewable and reducing waste, but nobody wants to hear that. So that's why I say, it depends on who believes the narrative, because the narrative's false, right? But that aside,
well, the gas is going to flare at any rate. If you live in Texas and you ever drive east of 35, the gas is going to be flaring no matter what.
Well, and if it runs through if it runs through a generator, it's cleaned up. The process is cleaner than burning it straight into the atmosphere. That's been proven too. Yep. So it's better for the environment to run it through a natural gas generator and power Bitcoin mining, right? It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, the Bitcoin mining industry is over 60% renewables, which is more than any other industry currently out. Like there's no other industry that's on renewables at that rate, right? So
let me ask you this:
the narrative doesn't make sense.
Are they building the renewables, or are they just utilizing the renewables that electrical infrastructure out, like the electric providers out there?
The biggest one right now is utilizing wind generation, because there were all of these incentives to build wind generation, and none of it's being used, or a lot of it isn't being used, and a lot of it has the same a similar problem to flare gas. Obviously, it's not gas pressurized in the lines, but a drop off of amount of energy through the delivery from the point where it's generated to where it needs to be delivered, right? And that drop off, that's typically where you're also seeing the new mining locations, right? So it is utilizing infrastructure that has been put into place already. A majority of it is, like, from what I've seen, right? So this is partially anecdotal. Unanecdotal is that we have a high percentage of renewables for cryptocurrency. Anecdotal seems like wind farms are where things are getting deployed right now, right? If that makes sense.
So if you're building your own wind farm and running your own cryptocurrency operation, I can't see how imposing a 30% tax on you would make any, like, that shouldn't be, but I don't know how much it is to build a wind farm. I would imagine it's quite a few $1 million to do that. But when you look at the scale of,
when you look at the dam in New York that they're trying to shut down, that was rebuilt up by the crypto miners so that they could mine out of the dam, they still want to shut that down. That's renewable.
I've got to check. I didn't even read about that one. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, so they like literally refurbished a dam, started utilizing the power to mine cryptocurrency, and then they're calling it bad for the environment and they want to shut it down. The narrative doesn't make any sense, right? Like, that's the problem, and that's why I say I think it comes down to who believes it or not, right? And it's going to, unfortunately, be one of those same topics that we always run into, whether it be marijuana, abortion, Second Amendment. Crypto's just looking like, unfortunately, it's falling into one of those baskets, right? I hate to see it, but that's what it sure feels like, right? And then it's not going to be about what the fact is. It's going to be about which narrative or which side are you on, right? And that's it.
Yeah, things get hyper political really quick, especially nowadays. So it's like, the reason debate doesn't happen, which is unfortunate a lot of the times. But I mean, if you look at a lot of states out there, I think that Bitcoin is certainly the predominant energy usage. I did note this also in the statistics they were presenting. They were using 2022 statistics for the kilowatt usage, megawatt usage of the industry. That's got to be down quite a lot in 2023 right now, right? Like this.
No, it's up. Difficulty went
up. For Bitcoin specifically?
Yeah.
So for Bitcoin, it's up? Okay.
Bitcoin is still
what about for the rest of the industry, though?
It dipped. Remember when everybody went bankrupt? All those machines came back online. We tracked this. I think this was all going on between January and March, when we had all the bankruptcy of the miners and then they recovered.
Right.
The miners weren't all recovering, but another thing that took place there that a lot of people missed was that lenders were powering on the machines. So the people
I know there's some big stuff coming down the pipeline with a large mining operation, right? Genesis.
Well, I mean, a lot of them, but I mean, yes, but they're rebuilding. We are adding more hash rate to the Bitcoin network, not reducing it right now. So
if we look at the GPU side of the coin, though, that's dropped off quite a lot, right?
Yeah, but GPU's always been a drop in the bucket compared to Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoin can't be attacked by a nation, but like you could still, like a nation could have probably still attacked even Ethereum. Like the security, as much as they want to say they were overpaying for it, was not. I don't think they were overpaying for it, right? That can be an argument that probably is best to be had with somebody that's extremely knowledgeable on the subject, like Bitsby Trippin, because he covered that a lot on his channel. But that was my understanding, though, is like even still, the GPU mining market was a drop in the bucket compared to ASICs. It just is.
Yeah. I mean, and there's also a part of me that when I do look at like how I've strategized kind of what I'm in as far as cryptos, I mean, Chia is low electric usage. So I don't think they like anything hard drive based is going to be pretty low electric usage. Proof of stake, I'm kind of bearish on. I think there could be a lot of, issues that come up with that we'll see whether or not the SEC wants to get involved with, whether or not it's a security or not.
It feels like they want to force everybody into proof of stake and then call it a security.
That's kind of my take on it also. And I mean, if you look at gas fees, I was looking at gas the other day. I was like, damn, it's just as expensive as it ever has been. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck changed? Like, nothing changed. Yeah.
Oh, for Ethereum, I mean, no, nothing's changed over there.
Yeah,
it's still
it's not faster.
Damn mess.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's interesting when you look at like what happens next. I think there will be a next wave of cryptocurrencies. Certainly, hard drive based cryptocurrencies probably are going to fare a little bit better. I mean, if you're a small scale operation, can you get by even doing it kind of under the radar? Probably. If you look at CPU operations, I mean, unless you're running like a ton of CPU operations, you can probably get by under the radar on that as well. And it's just where's the profitability at usually drives where the people go.
Well, the problem the problem with CPU mining is it's basically who's the better hacker. I mean, that's really all. Yep. CPU mining is just, can you crypto jack? How many data centers can you successfully crypto jack and stay hidden on? That's why I never, like, from my perspective, being like in the IT world and like battling and fighting crypto jacking all over the place, whenever it's like, why don't you CPU mine? It's like, because why would I pay for something that everybody else is getting for free? That just seems stupid to me. I can't, in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Because like all I'm doing is buying something that everybody else is getting for free.
So you're not in on Dero then? Okay.
No, dude, Dero's got to be all stolen, dude. Dero is perfectly
it's a data center right now. I think on free Azure credits or something like that. Last I heard, so I'm out on Dero for sure. Also, but yeah, I've got to say, I mean, there's a lot of interesting cryptos out there, but there's a lot that just I don't think they'd pull through. And like, if you were looking at like what is the next Ethereum, that's a good question. What do you think is the next Ethereum?
If I'm talking completely objectively, right, you would say Ironfish.
Really?
Yeah. VC backed.
I mean, okay.
Completely shitty tokenomics that favor the development team and the investors and screws over the miners. It is par for the course exactly what Ethereum was. It has all the same markings of it. It can be manipulated to heck from a token perspective. I mean, like, the way they locked up the coins for the initial investors. Yeah, dude, of course. It's Ironfish.
So, does that have you bullish?
I did make a video already. I said I'm bullish on the mining for Ironfish, right? But it's not. There's always this problem within cryptocurrency that will continue on probably for forever, and that is the different, making the distinction between, as a miner, what you mine to be profitable, right? And as a CryptoPunk, what you hate because it's not fundamentally sound with your principles, right? And there's always that issue, right? I still mined Ethereum. I never agreed with what Ethereum was doing, right? It's never like, I mean, a majority of the Ethereum, unless I accidentally forgot, got converted to Bitcoin like boom as soon as it was mined, right? Which is probably what will happen with Ironfish, and then they'll complain about overpaying for security, and they'll move to proof of stake or whatever it is, and then we'll move on, right?
You gotta be looking at any proof of work cryptocurrency right now and thinking to yourself, there's a lot of discussion that's happening today as a result of what the White House has put out around what they do next. And I mean, there's huge risk going proof of stake also. You go proof of stake right now, it's not like the SEC has not said, hey, if the majority of your, validators are in data centers in the United States, that we're not going to have purview. They're taking the opinion they do have purview because the majority of your validators are headquartered there. So, I mean, your actual consensus formation mechanism starts to become pretty darn important. And I think we'll see some consensus upgrades surrounding those kind of discussions over the next several months. I'm not saying specifically with Ironfish, but I think there will be other cryptos out there that are starting to look at how can we make sure that we survive whatever comes down the pipeline, and also have distribution that is not centered, especially in the United States, for that specific reason.
Well, and that's been a big problem that I talked to, I think by the time people watch this video, that I talked to Daniel Keller about last week, which was, you know, like, unfortunately, all the United States is doing right now is stifling innovation within blockchain, within the borders. I mean, Flux is not based out of the United States because it just regulatory-wise cannot be based out of the United States. They make it literally impossible. And that is par for the course across the entire crypto industry. And then people say, like, oh, how does FTX happen? Well, FTX happened because it doesn't really matter how hard you try to be regulatory compliant or whatever. It's actually impossible for you to. And you'll apply, get denied, and then they go offshore, and then there's less, you know, stopping them from doing something wrong. That's pretty much how it shakes out.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. As soon as you go offshore, your incentives to comply with the regulations that in the United States are just not well specified. And I mean, that they're not well specified is in itself just shocking at this point, because they should actually be incredibly well specified. Even if securities law is securities law, it wouldn't hurt to put out a guidance packet for cryptocurrencies that says, hey, by the way, are you doing these things? You're not going to pass the Howey test, so that people know. We
know what the real problem is, though. I mean, like, even Kennedy, who's running now, by the way, shockingly, he tweeted out today in support of cryptocurrency and spoke out against the cryptocurrency mining tax, and acknowledged that cryptocurrency was basically, you know, the next innovation, the next move forward, but also on the same coin noted that the powers that be lose power if it becomes a thing. And so if we're being completely honest, the regulators lose the regulation power if Bitcoin becomes a thing. Like, that's a problem that you have. It's like you get regulation from the very get-go from people that are hurt by the thing they're regulating is never going to work, right? It's like
there's vested interest. There's huge vested interest, and they've got there's huge lobbies that are very well funded, and they're better funded than the crypto lobbies. I am going to just throw a wild guess out there that they are. I don't know that, but I'm going to guess they are. And I mean, when you look at TradFi, they're not going to go silently here. They're definitely not going to go silently here. When you look at AWS, when you look at Azure, when you look at Microsoft and the data centers they're putting together, are they going to just comply and roll over with Web3 and people being able to deploy their own cryptocurrency-based incentivized networks for a quarter the price that are able to do the same thing? I mean, that's where it becomes very difficult for what happens next to run in the United States. It actually might be best if it didn't run in the United States. Well, I hate to say it.
On the flip side, though, you end up just being here's where things get really weird. They try to shut down torrents for as long as they could, as much as they could, and torrents never got shut down to this day, right? The fact of the matter is that no single nation is going to be able to stop cryptocurrency even within their own borders, no matter how small the nation is either, right? Because you have to consolidate that control down to a very localized thing to be able to control it. And that's just not going to work in a country the size of the United States of America. And if you try to do it, all you end up really doing is just exacerbating the issue, right? It's just like pouring gasoline on the fire, because you're printing all this money, right? You're devaluing people's homes, and then you're making things extremely difficult on them to function. Maybe they did find cryptocurrency mining as a way to actually supplement their income, and now you're hammering with this, which also was weird on the whitehouse.gov. Did you see the chart that had like crypto home mining as one of the things, like specifically targeting crypto miners at home?
they're paying attention.
Like,
they're paying
crypto miners,
sure
that just tells me they just want, they want to crush the American public, and or at least that's what's going to happen. And at a certain point, it's going to be like, well, I can't afford to pay the 30% tax. So what are you going to do to me? Are you going to arrest everybody and throw everybody in jail? How are you going to, you just can't do it. It's not possible.
The IRS will fine you. The IRS will for sure be like, we're going to fine you. But I mean, they have to come, they have to prove it. It's a whole big fucking thing. Like, are they going to come to everybody's home and do this? No, they can't do that. But are you going to commit perjury on your IRS form by not checking a box that says, are you a producer of cryptocurrencies? That's where they get you.
Right.
That right there. And that is an incredibly powerful checkbox that I don't think it exists yet, but probably does exist if it does end up happening.
What my point is if you put too much pressure on people, eventually they break. They're just not, like, if you're incapable of shouldering the burden of the state, you will turn against the state. Mm. So you end up having a really bad problem there. Do you think they have to push to see that actually happen, though?
That's a good question. How much further do they have to push for that to actually happen?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I would have thought that some things would have started breaking. I guess in some areas, you know, we're very, you're a Texan as well. We're very isolated right now in Texas, I think, to a certain extent.
You got to drive a long way to get out of Austin. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. And there's not, you know, but it's hard to say, like, Walmart shutting down in Washington State and New York, right? I mean, you wouldn't think, I mean, Walmarts would be getting shut down. I mean, especially for theft.
San Francisco's got some of the most expensive stores, and they're shutting down too. And it's like, that is like one of the most expensive retail districts in the United States.
It's starting to look like we're going in a bad direction. I mean, and if it gets to the point to where people can't go out and enjoy the standard of living that they previously could, and then you impose exogenous taxes on them and make it even more difficult for them to survive, eventually, yes. Like, and do I know how long that is, or it will for sure will happen? No. But I mean, it's happening in France right now, right? I mean, to a certain extent. I think that crypto will be at the center of that too, which is like a weird thing to say, but like, and a little creepy, but I do think crypto becomes a centerpiece within this struggle, right? The same struggle that we've seen in the world since the beginning of time, right? Which is the struggle of power.
It really is.
It's the power of the few over the many. And like, it's the same struggle that we always see. And I think that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general is that centerpiece for the digital age.
I think you're spot on. And I think that it's always everybody trying to claw as fast as they can to get to the top. And then as soon as you get to the top, you're looking at how you can prevent other people from getting to the top. It's unfortunate part of human nature almost, but it does incentivize people to look at what they're doing, evaluate what they're doing, and make good decisions in the future, especially the near-term future, with what they do, because it is important to consider what happens next. And it's easy to lose sight of, you know, the personal things in your own life and the bigger implications for future generations. And I think we're at the future generations kind of talking point for what kind of changes happen in the United States here. And that, you know, is something that I take pretty seriously.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. It was fun talking. I am going to get to dinner, though. I enjoyed having you on. You'll have to come back on. Can you remind people where they can find you at?
Yeah, you can hit me up at Go Spaceport on Twitter. You can also find me on YouTube, and that is Digital Spaceport. You can also find me on the website, digitalspaceport.com. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your evening. And thanks for giving me the chance to talk. So I really enjoyed it. And we should definitely do an in-person thing again. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe you can come help me out in like Houston or something. We'll figure out and like schedule a whole new thing. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll leave all the links down below in the description. I think you know how to find it at this point. YouTube's been around for like over a decade. You know, it's been around. I'll see you next Tuesday. Today's sponsor is myself. I recently launched a crypto mining e-course at sonofatech.com, and it includes 9 steps to cover when you decide to start your crypto mining journey. This is specifically pertaining to 2023 crypto mining profits and taking advantage of the down market to achieve skyrocketing growth as we move into the next halving of Bitcoin. You'll learn buying mining equipment in a bear market, using outside investment to speculative mine, begin mining once profit is established, sell mine crypto to pay for electricity, hold and prep for the bull run, sell at the top of the bull market, sell mining equipment at the top of the bull market, and begin investing in land and power so that you can bring in outside investors to utilize excess resources. Thanks everybody for your support, and I hope you enjoy the course. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section below.